Hey guys, welcome back to more homeowner association stories. In this video, an HOA Karen president freaked out on me because I refused to join the HOA. They claimed that we must give the HOA access to our property at all times and remove our fence and gate. Let's dive right into the video. I think I got turned off by HOAs even before I ever actually joined one. Let me explain, because this is one story I will never forget. So to start off, my parents owned a house that was less than a block away from an actual HOA community, but they were not a part of it. The boundary ended on the sidewalk, so the street and the next block were not considered HOA property, even though a lot of people traveled on it from both sides. When my parents passed away, they transferred the ownership over to me, since none of my other siblings lived nearby. I decided to move in with my wife and 2-year-old son, since the house was already paid for and the rent at our apartment went up. So then we moved in a few months after my parents' affairs were settled, because my parents lived in the house until they passed away, and there were a lot of things that needed to be fixed or updated that they were not able to handle because of their age. I brought a contractor in to handle a few things inside, like checking on the plumbing and the electric stuff. I wanted to update the outside a bit, since there were a few cosmetic things that needed to be fixed. The house had a large porch that I installed a wooden gate on, since I was not gonna take a chance on my son running out of the yard and into the street if he was playing. I also added a gate to the part of the fence that faced the sidewalk from the front, which served as another line of defense for my son, just in case he got the first gate open. There was already a gate in the fence near the side of the house, but having one in the front made it even more convenient. A few days after installing the gates, I was checking on a few things around the house when I noticed a man opening up my front gate to come into our yard. I figured he was some sort of solicitor, since he had a large file folder in his hands along with a clipboard. I met him out on the porch just as he was trying to get that gate open. Me, "Hi there, can I help you?" Man, we will call him Kevin. "I'm the head of the HOA and wanted to make sure that you had your packet." He then hands me the large folder. Me, "I'm sorry, but this house is not a part of the HOA and it never was." So I hand the package back to him, but he tries to shove it at me. Kevin, "As the head of the HOA, I know that this house is a part of it. I don't know where you got your information, but you need that packet so that you understand what you shouldn't be doing on your property." Me, "Excuse me?" Mr. Kevin then gestures to the fence and the porch and said, "You had to have gotten permission from the board before you went through with construction. I wanted to tell you in person about the fine that you will have to pay because of this." Me, "Well, I'm not paying it because this property is mine and not part of the HOA." I figured that's enough and head back inside, waving him off. I thought I had seen the last of Kevin, and a part of me was just hoping that there was a mix-up somewhere and he thought we were in the HOA. 2 days later though, he came back, and again he came through the gate and managed to get onto my porch to knock on the front door. Me, "Look Kevin, I've explained before that we are not in the HOA. At this point you're trespassing." Kevin, "I'm the president of the HOA board. I'm allowed to go wherever I need to. So you're going to have to remove these gates or I will have to present you with another fine." Me, "This house is not in the HOA and you are trespassing. Get off of my porch before I get the cops involved." Kevin then said, "Get them involved and see if I care, but because this is HOA property, I have jurisdiction over it." Even so, he backed off and headed back past the fence. My wife was the one who suggested getting locks for the gates, since Kevin had come into our yard uninvited twice now. I spared no expense getting 2 of those fingerprint locks that registered mine and my wife's thumbprint in order to open the gate. I couldn't help but snicker when I saw Kevin the other day after attempting to open the gate so he could get in. Well, and then the letters started coming. Just like Kevin said, he sent us several fines for the gates that were constructed without running the plans past the board, the locks on the gates, and then another fee that, I kid you not, was for failure to provide access to HOA board members. The fines were huge, all of them combined coming out just shy of $800. I just tucked the notices away, not wanting to throw them out in case Kevin tried anything weird. If he was not gonna stop insisting that my house was part of this community, I wanted to gather as much evidence of his harassment as possible. The weeks went by, and because I didn't pay the fines that he sent, Kevin doubled down. I was getting something in the mail every day claiming there was no interest growing on the fines and I was owing more and more with each passing day. I now had a hefty stack of the letters and the fines, and we were getting close to cresting $3,000. I was not worried and hoped that Kevin would just get tired of this whole thing and just leave it alone. I want to say it was about a month after the letters started that I got a large envelope in my mailbox. I opened it expecting another fine, but was staring at something akin to an eviction notice from the HOA, which is an interesting letter for a homeowner. They cited that my fees now extended past what they would allow for someone to accrue, and if I did not pay them before the end of the month, my family would be removed from this house. I realized this had gone a bit too far and knew that I had to do something here. Regardless if it was a threat I didn't have to worry about, I did not want to take my chances if Kevin actually got the authorities involved with this. A friend of mine works at a local law firm, so I was able to reach out to her to get information on whether or not Kevin could actually go through with an eviction. She told me that if he was claiming the house was a part of the HOA, he could, but if I had proof that it wasn't, then he would either have to produce a document refuting it or just let it drop. She told me that a copy of the deed to the home and my parents' will would be enough, since Kevin would need a document with my parents' signature on it to indicate that they were in the HOA. Well, then I got everything together, and when the time came for Kevin to evict me, I showed him and the other members of the HOA he brought with him to throw me out. Kevin, what are those? Me, this is the deed to the house showing that it was purchased by my mom and father nearly 50 years ago. This is a copy of my father's will indicating that upon his death the house would go into my name. Kevin, this house is part of this community and you will vacate it because you have not paid your fines. Me, either bring me documentation that states my parents were a part of your HOA or I will take legal action to you for harassment. Kevin, I will find the file, but I'm not letting this stand. I will see you in court. I then called up my friend and she met with me to go over my case and what I was looking for. I made sure that she had all of the documents I showed Kevin, along with all of the letters with fines that he sent. There were 40 of them that I had, and I think I freaked out my friend by just having them all stacked up in a pile. She told me to let her handle things for the time being, and she would be in touch if there was gonna be a trial. Apparently, it was Kevin that wanted the trial in court. He kept insisting that all of the documents I had were fakes and that I was just trying to get out of paying my fines. He was seeking the amount that I was fined along with my eviction from my home, and his lawyer also insisted that the boundaries of the HOA included the block that my house was on. My lawyer was quick to bring out the HOA's construction map indicating that the border stopped at the sidewalk across the street from my home. The HOA's lawyer did not have any supporting documents that showed my parents had signed their house over to the HOA, even though Kevin had claimed that he would find the papers. I think that was what really cemented that things could go my way. Kevin threw a fit saying that the court was out to get him just because he was the president of the HOA. He complained that he was not getting a fair trial and got himself in contempt pretty quickly. The judge had the evidence gone through again without any of Kevin's outbursts. The jury took less than an hour to deliberate and we won. I was not to be contacted by anyone on the HOA's board, I was not getting evicted, and Kevin owed me money for the harassment he performed on me and my family. Word spread quickly around the neighborhood, including in the HOA itself, about what had happened and how the president of the HOA had threatened me, and the week after the trial was a busy one in the HOA. Someone from the board came to my gate, waiting outside it properly instead of trying to barge in, and let me know that Kevin was fired and no longer lives in the HOA. Apparently, a lot of residents threatened to leave the HOA, some of them doing so once they heard about what he had tried to do to me, and the board had no other choice. I think justice was served and I feel much better knowing that someone like Kevin is not gonna be anywhere near me again. And the next one is titled, Neighbor's House Burned Down. Our homeowner association is demanding that we take care and clean up the property by next Monday or else we are gonna be fined for negligence. And by the way guys, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments to show your support. Thank you so much in advance. I was told to post this here by my son. We own a home in an HOA in New York State. We had a few problems with our HOA in the past, but this is beyond anything I have ever dealt with. So about 3 weeks ago, there was a fire and our neighbor's house was heavily damaged by the fire. I'm not privy to the details of the fire, but the house was apparently written off. Last week, the remains still standing were bulldozed for safety reasons. However, most of the actual remains were piled up. I was expecting them to remove it, but they haven't. I don't really know what's going on with it at all. Tonight, our HOA came to our house to tell us that we are shirking our HOA duties as their lot is a mess. Our HOA president is now arguing that both me and the other adjacent neighbors are responsible for the upkeep of any vacant dwellings. So this is what they are arguing. In the event of a unit being unoccupied with no clear owner, it is the responsibility of any adjacent units to perform any required upkeep to ensure the vacant unit is up to the community standards. Insert reference to our bylaw bylaws regarding how stuff is supposed to look. Our HOA more or less wants us to remove all the debris, fix the lawn, etc. I got so many issues with this. First of all, it's not safe at all, and secondly, I don't know who owns the plot now. According to our HOA, the original owners took the insurance money and are moving somewhere else. So wouldn't that mean the insurance company owns the land and not us? We have until May 17th to apparently get this done, otherwise we'll be fined. Am I crazy or does this seem idiotic? And yeah, Ripestories, if you would be in this situation, what would you do? Aside from trying to run far away from an HOA like this, of course. Either way, one comment on r/legal advice said, I don't see any reasonable way the property could fail to have a clear owner. Either the previous owners still own it or they have sold or given it away, in which case the new owners are a matter of public record. So basically, just about the only way this situation could lead to unclear ownership is if the owners died and no heir could be located or the estate was not probated in a reasonable amount of time. However, it sounds like the HOA is prepared to play fast and loose with this. I can guess why though. If the owners are walking away from the property, it might be years before the delinquent dues and property taxes reach a point where a forced sale is practical, during which time the lot will be an eyesore unless the HOA itself takes action to fix it up. At the expense of all of the owners, of course. If they can pressure you and your neighbors into paying for it directly, it saves the HOA and thus all of the other owners money. Just get together with the other neighbors affected by this nonsense and get a consult with a local lawyer. Let your lawyer advise you on how to confront the HOA, and if there's some way that the HOA is in the right, advise you on exactly what your obligations actually are. Comment number 2, real estate lawyer time. I would argue that the clause he mentions has no bearing in this case. There's a clear owner of the title and remaining structure, and they're in contact with him even. And now we got an update to the story, and it goes like this. So first of all, thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. You guys were right, I needed a lawyer and fast. Well, the day after posting here, I called around and found a real estate attorney who could see me right away. I showed him all the HOA documents, including that clause that they were trying to use against us. He actually laughed out loud when he read it. This clause is about maintaining vacant properties that are still part of the HOA, he told me. It was never meant to cover debris removal from a destroyed house. That's a liability nightmare waiting to happen. The attorney helped me draft a formal response to the HOA. We also did a quick title search and found out the insurance company had not taken ownership and the original owners still owned the property. They had just moved away while deciding what to do with it. I got together with my neighbor Jim, the other person they were trying to force into this cleanup, and we split the attorney fees. The lawyer sent a cease and desist letter to the HOA board explaining that number 1, the property had a clear owner. The clause they cited was being misinterpreted. Number 3, making unauthorized residents clean up fire debris could create massive liability issues. 4, any fines would be immediately challenged in court, and the HOA president showed up at my door 2 days later, looking a lot less smug than before. We have reviewed your attorney's letter, he said stiffly. The board has decided to temporarily suspend the cleanup requirement while we consult our own counsel. I just nodded and said, that's probably wise of you. My attorney says handling fire debris without proper permits and safety equipment is illegal anyway. Well, he did not like that at all, but what could he do? A week later, we got an official letter from the HOA saying that they were rescinding the previous notice regarding adjacent property maintenance requirements. In other words, they backed down completely. But the story does not end there. The city finally got involved after multiple complaints about the debris. Not from me, I think other neighbors called it in, and they contacted the owners and gave them 30 days to clean up the property or face daily fines. Turns out the owners were dragging their feet because they were fighting with the insurance company about the payout, and once the city got involved, things started moving fast. A property license cleanup crew showed up last week and cleared everything out in 2 days. The best part though, at the next HOA meeting, 3 other homeowners came up to me and said that they were glad someone finally stood up to the board. Apparently, they've been pulling similar stunts with other residents, just not as extreme as trying to make us clean up fire debris. One of my neighbors, Barbara, told me they tried to make me repaint my whole house last year because one shutter was peeling. When I pointed out that the bylaws only require repairs to damaged areas, they backed off immediately. They count on people not knowing their rights. I've started going to every HOA meeting now. The board seems a lot more careful about how they interpret the bylaws these days, and my attorney says that's pretty common. Once someone challenges them successfully, they tend to calm down. Total cost for the attorney was $800 split between me and Jim, so $400 each. Worth every penny to avoid potentially thousands in fines or cleanup costs, not to mention the safety risks. Special thanks, by the way, to everyone who commented on my original post, especially the person who pointed out that there had to be a clear owner. You were absolutely right, and that was one of the key points that helped our case. For anyone else dealing with HOA issues, just know your rights, read your bylaws carefully, and don't be afraid to get legal help. Anyway, the next one is titled Dumb Seller, and it's a very interesting story from r/petty revenge. So I don't typically buy a lot of designer clothing, but when I do go shopping, I dress pretty casually. Last week I was strolling through the mall and there was a designer backpack on display that caught my attention. I went inside the store wearing a hoodie and ripped jeans and went to inquire about the price of the backpack. I waited around for 10 minutes for someone to help me until I decided to go up to one of the sales representatives myself. She told me to wait because she was helping another customer, so I sat down and waited. I saw her in the corner of the store just standing, not doing anything. I decided to wait another 5 minutes for her to come back, but she never did. I walked back up to her and told her I wanted to inquire about the backpack. I asked her if she could bring one from the back room so I could take a closer look at it. She told me that she would not be able to do that unless I was planning on purchasing the item. She seemed annoyed with my request. Before I could say anything else, she quickly walked away to help another customer. So I myself am quite young, 25, and I could tell she did not think that I was serious about purchasing it and did not want to waste her time. I would have actually purchased it then and there if she had not been so dismissive. A few days later I went back into the store and this time I made sure to dress even more casually than before. I walked in with a pair of sweatpants, running shoes, a tank top and zip-up. The same lady was working that day and turned her back to me as soon as I walked in. I went up to one of the other sales reps. This guy was younger, smiling and seemed eager to help, and I told him that I wanted to purchase the backpack and he gladly went inside and got it for me. He even asked if I would like to take a look at it before buying. I thanked him and he checked me out. The store manager was also by the cashier and I let him know that I came in last week and that the lady would not let me see the product before purchasing it. He was upset to hear this and told me that this was not the first time he had received a complaint about her. The item was a few grand and all the commission went towards the junior. He was so kind and grateful. She avoided eye contact with me after she got told off by her manager and I smiled at her as I walked out of the store. Don't judge a book by its cover. And yeah, honestly, Ripestars, if I would be the boss of that business, I would fire that woman. I hate it when people in stores judge you. And by the way, Ripestars, recently I found out that Am I the A-hole as a subreddit also exists in other languages, and there was an interesting post about an Am I the A-hole situation here in Europe. If I remember correctly, it was from Germany. So basically the situation was this guy was trying to purchase something in a supermarket and right in front of him was a woman who was buying some kind of German liquor. I think the time was around 18:30 or 19 o'clock or something, and supposedly that particular supermarket closes around 20 o'clock. So it's like 30 minutes or maybe an hour or something before closing time. And then the cashier asks the woman in kind of a derogatory or a condescending tone whether it is not a little bit too early to buy liquor like this. The woman in front of him then did not really know how to respond, and when it was OP's turn, he asked the cashier, "So you're closing soon, when is the right time to buy this kind of liquor then?" And OP then asked if he was the a-hole because he reported this cashier to the manager or something like that. And honestly, in that situation, I would not say that OP is a Karen or an a-hole or anything. I think he did the right thing. The cashier has absolutely no right to judge customers for what they buy. Anyway, let me know what you think about that one in the comments. I just found it interesting. Either way, the next one is an Am I the A-hole story from the, I suppose, American subreddit. My boyfriend is a big hero fanatic and does everything in his power to be like one. It's really endearing and it's one of the many things I love about him. Because he wants to be the good he wishes to see in the world. However, this mindset he has is why we are fighting right now. So we've been quarantining at my apartment, he's not in the lease, and he suggested we go on a night walk since we've been getting stir crazy from being inside all day. He figured that it would be better for social distancing to go out at night. I was hesitant because we live in a bad neighborhood and he assured me he would protect me. On our walk, we were cornered by a man with a knife that demanded our wallets. I remember John Mulaney's street smarts bit from the Netflix show and was gonna throw my wallet past the mugger so we could run away, but my boyfriend started arguing with him and was spouting off a bunch of stuff about justice and how the mugger would not get away with this. It looked like he was getting ready to fight. I was taken aback by this, and I guess the mugger too, because it gave me enough time to take the important stuff out of my wallet while he was distracted. I interrupted my boyfriend's monologue and said, "Take it, just don't hurt us," and threw it behind the guy. When he turned, I grabbed my boyfriend's hand and we booked it back to the apartment. We got home safely and I was relieved that we were okay, but my boyfriend was fuming. He was pissed that I interrupted him from protecting me when he could have, in his words, clearly handled it himself. I told him that he could have gotten himself killed. He said that he was obviously stronger than the mugger guy and would have won. I explained to him that the guy had a weapon and my boyfriend didn't, so the odds were stacked against him. Not only that, but I did not want my boyfriend to get killed over a damn wallet. We argued for longer than necessary, so I shut it down and told him we could talk about it when our adrenaline was not so high, but now I needed to file a police report while the event was fresh. He stomped off our room while I called the cops. When I was off the phone, I went to lay with him, but he rolled away from me. The next day he was still angry and had already told his friends and family about what had happened to us. I thought that they would be understanding about how I handled it, but they were mad at me for not letting him have his opportunity to be a hero. His mom even ridiculed me for emasculating him. I want to reopen the conversation so we can understand each other and move past it, but if he is not receptive, I'm gonna ask him to move back in with his mom. I want to understand where I went wrong if I went wrong, but honestly, I feel like he's being childish and unreasonable. I just want to know if I am the a-hole or is he. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. I would say that OP is definitely not the a-hole, or in this subreddit, the buttface, because she absolutely did the right thing, and maybe if she wouldn't have done this, the mugger could have really injured either OP or her boyfriend. The boyfriend is clearly being childish and maybe even being a man-child, which might be even worse. Anyway, comment number 1 on Reddit said, "Not the buttface and your man-child has issues." As others who pointed out, he was escalating the situation and put you in danger, which is not how you protect someone you care about. His family sounds like idiots too. Take care. Edit, my hubby, who's a retired cop, said you did the correct thing in that situation and your boyfriend is an idiot and was not protecting you. Comment number 2, my husband is an experienced MMA fighter. I read him this and his response was, that idiot is gonna get himself and his girlfriend killed. Real life is not an action movie. In real life, the safest action is de-escalation, so everyone leaves unharmed. That woman was smart and did the right thing. She is clearly the hero. Why do you find his superhero dream endearing? It sounds like he has no training in self-defense, hand-to-hand combat, weapons disarming, or negotiation. He sounds like an idiot who wants you to swoon at his feet like a damsel in distress. It's pretty damn offensive how he regards you as a helpless female who just needs to live with him to be safe, when he does it all wrong and is actually putting you in danger. And now, Ripe Stars, we have an update to the story, and it reads like this. So he called me last night and I answered. He asked if I was okay and how I was doing, then he asked if he could come over and I said he could. I planned on bringing everything up again myself because he had been very passive-aggressive and refusing to talk about it. But when he showed up, he immediately started apologizing. Everything you guys pointed out, he started agreeing with. He was saying that he was being delusional, unrealistic, the whole hero fantasy is not healthy, he jeopardized my safety and that was not okay. I was not prepared for this behavior, especially compared to how he had been acting all week. We talked for hours before we went to bed together and everything seemed like it worked out fine. I was really on the verge of ending things, so it was a relief that I did not have to in that moment. Then this morning came and crap hit the fan. In my comment update on the last post, I mentioned that a friend was trying to mediate. I texted that friend that things worked out and they said something along the lines of, "I'm so glad you were able to apologize." Some people mentioned that maybe he told a different story, which is not something I looked into, but I decided to ask and oh boy, I'm glad I did. Firstly, he told everyone that the night walk was my idea and then apparently we were never mugged. Nope. Apparently, I just started talking crap to a stranger on the street in an attempt to make him show that he was a strong man and to protect me. And the only reason we were able to get away was because he de-escalated the situation and that it was emasculating because he was put in a position where he felt like he was forced to fight for my honor. Are you kidding me? To make a long story short, he tried to play dumb and backpedal this morning when I confronted him about it, and then when I pressed him to be honest, he snapped again and said, "What was I supposed to say? The whole situation was embarrassing and it was gonna make me look bad." We argued again for a bit, but I was just done. I told him to go and that this was not gonna work. He did not have much stuff, so it was easy to put in a spare grocery bag and just toss at him while he angrily left. He is currently outside of my complex waiting for mommy to pick him up. As far as I'm concerned, I dodged a bullet. F his friends, F his mom, and F him. Thank you for opening my eyes. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripestories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible, and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.